I mean, it's a particularly challenging time in life right now to try to be happy about stuff, given what's going on
Exactly.
this week. So, I mean, we're already talking about a tragedy to start out as it is, and now we got another tragedy on top of it we got to deal with. So, we're not going to lose sight of the fact, as my good friend Mr. Bill Petrie likes to say a lot about being tone deaf about stuff. Like, I mean, just people lost their dad, their husband, like like I don't care what you believe in. Nobody should have to go through what we just watched happen. Like that, I don't.
It's a
Ah,
collective trauma. No, it's a collective trauma for the entire nation, regardless
awful.
of who you are, where you stand, and how much you knew about the guy. It's definitely it's a weird week. And then, yesterday, obviously, it's the anniversary of another big tragedy. So yeah, so it's definitely we're being tested as a nation. But I am still bullish on our country, on our economy, our leadership, and the people that make up our culture. I think we are strong enough to find a way through this. That's my feeling on it.
And I believe this is a good time. You know who the douchebags are when they in times like this, people that that just don't have any sense of right, wrong, and or they talk out of. It's just like you find out who the good people are and who the bad souls are, and then you know who to avoid because in times like this, you really get to see people's true colors. And kind of like what we saw at the natural, it's no different than what we were talking about. I
Yeah.
This
mean,
so like okay, so if the refrain is like, why can't we be like we were on September 12th, 2001? Okay. We're just what we're going to do right now is we're going to talk to the world about instances where we still, as Americans and as humans, still behave in this way, right?
yeah.
And we
And
saw that tenfold in Kirk County, Texas, when we were out there, which we'll get into.
so like part of me was a little grateful that we had an extra day
Yeah.
because it gave me a chance to think about like contextually why this is an important conversation. We want to cover what happened for sure, and you guys were so close to it that you're going to be touched by it in a way that people who are going to watch this are going to feel what happened as a result of your participation. But this is what our industry is all about in these moments, and we just keep seeing it time and time and time again when we are presented as a marketplace as a chance with the chances to show our humanity like what happened where you guys were at. It's just we don't need another example to prove that we are capable and willing. What I'm loving about what we're going to talk about is like they're not becoming flashpoints anymore. They're becoming a manual for how we're going to respond going forward. And I love what you guys have done. And it's why it's important that we make sure that we not only cover the piece of it that's like the tragedy of it and how you were touched by it, but if what we're talking about is true, and I just don't know how any of us could feel differently than the way that you've gone about organizing the effort that you did is as important as the fact that you did something. So I just want to say thank you when it comes to that within the context of what we're doing today. But before we get ahead of ourselves, like there's going to be people who won't know who either of you are. So I want to allow both of you the chance to sort of introduce yourself to the Promo Cares community, where you fit into this crazy mixed up marketplace that we're all involved in. And like, then we can maybe jump into the story a little bit deeper, eh?
Rusty Pepper. I'm head of new markets and partnerships for Taylor, overseeing Taylor OnDemand. It's part of Taylor Corporation, which is, we like to joke, a largest company nobody's ever heard of, $2.5 billion, privately held, 94 production facilities across the US, Mexico, Canada, and UK. So I fit into this conversation because I called a help by Lawrence into what we were started with Team OnDemand. That's how we kind of came up with the idea and what we're going to be talking about later. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. But I focus on demand for the print and promo industry.
Because that's not happening. There's not really any movement in that direction.
No, 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 not at all.
Man, what the hell's that? Minimum orders, right? Minimum.
What would you want inventory? Why wouldn't you want inventory liabilities? Come on
You
now.
mean, you mean like Etsy? No, stop it.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be surprised how many people still think that that's what it is.
That's why I said what I said. Anyway, Lawrence, who's Lawrence?
Lawrence Hanley here. I'm the founder and CEO of Desk Plants. We are a supplier that specializes in potted plants that get branded and sent out. We're starting to branch out, no pun intended, to other products that are geared around high value when it comes to ROI on the investment in a hard good with a logo or a message, right? So we're really starting to focus on what we can get on people's desks, what we can keep out in the open, and drive a really high quality gifting experience from pre-sales all the way to the recipient opening and having it be on their desk for a long time to come. And how we're involved today, I saw and we'll get into this more, but when this all happened, it was in my backyard. I'm originally from Massachusetts, but I've been down here for almost 9 years. And when I just saw the heartbreak on TV, on the news, I couldn't, no, it wasn't just a reel on my Instagram anymore. It was that these are my neighbors. These are the people I go to UT football games with. These are the people I mingle with. And I had to do something. There was no not doing something in that situation. And then that's how Rusty and I linked up and had some cool conversations, some really introspective moments. And we Team OnDemand is what came out of it.
So the crazy thing about our chat is none of us directly, like none of you guys know me, and I don't know either of you guys, and
Yeah.
like as is often the case when promo cares gets mentioned to people, they're like, wait, well, what's that? Like they're like, well, there's this thing that's been going on for like 6 or 7 years where we just kept trying to figure out as a group, really, you know, twofold really reasoning behind why we started what we started. One was, I've always been worried that somebody's going to decide that virgin plastic is bad and industries that rely on it are going to struggle. So that was a primary concern. But more importantly, like the idea, the fact that if if uh, if environmentalists ever decide that what we create doesn't create enough value to the ecosystem in the process, then maybe we just get legislated out of existence. So we were trying to figure out how could we present our marketplace in a more favorable light so that people could realize that, like, yeah, that is when it's used for evil, that's how it gets used, but look at all this other stuff that's going on, right? And so we were able to really shine a spotlight on what we were able to identify as businesses using themselves for an outcome beyond just profit and what was happening to those businesses as a result of that choice. And here we are all these years later, and our marketplace really has responded to that request, both intrinsically, both within our own industry walls. We've decided as a group, I think, that it's more important than it ever had been before, but maybe even more importantly, and I know Rusty can understand this because of the size of Taylor, our clients started asking for it in ways that maybe we weren't prepared for because other supply chains that were serving businesses of that size were already ahead of us and were making those requests. And because businesses saw what it could potentially create for them in the other supply chains, they're like, all right, well, this one seems like it makes perfect sense. So the supply chains reacted. We just happened to be in a really good place to be able to broadcast those messages of what was transpiring within the industry during that process. But what that created for promo cares was we went from sort of being just the cheerleaders
Yeah.
to, over time, now we've become the teachers, where we're more interested in, like, you want to learn how to do stuff like this, then just to hang out with us because we'll show you. We'll introduce you to people like Rusty and Lawrence who are doing these kinds of things. And you don't have to just cheer them on from the other side of the country. Like, call them up, start working with them. Let's go. Like, why are you wasting time? So when we hear stories like the one that Scott told me, so Scott Pearson being on the promo cares board, literally is like, you've got to meet these guys and you got to hear what went down. Because if you look at our four good series of events and the fundraisers that have spawned, that was purely accidental. That was never what we intended to be. It just sort of happened that way.
It was a
So,
happy accident.
well, and like, so I'm sure both of you in your individual lives weren't sitting around going, someday I'm going to use promo to try to save people from a flood. Like, it's just not anything that we think about. So I'll shut up. I just wanted to give you some context around like how we became what we became, because within that context, this story, oh my God, it just fits so perfectly, right? So bad shit happened. Lawrence feels compelled. He goes and starts doing stuff, and we're just going to pick the story up from there, and I'll let you guys tell it the way you want to tell it.
Cool. I guess I'll start because it kind of did start on my end. So, yeah, we woke up on July 4th. It had rained in Austin overnight, but we started to see the stuff on social media and the news showing how devastating the floods truly were. I mean, you see crazy videos just in the day-to-day of social media. It happens all the time, but the floods that we were seeing, I mean, we were seeing cars just floating down and people's houses just floating in the road. I'd never seen anything like that. And I was starting to look it up and oh my God, that's 2 hours away. That's less than 2 hours away. Some of these places I've spent weekends, with friends just getting out of the city. So I was quite familiar with the area of hill country that this was affecting. And when we started the thing that really broke my heart was obviously the story of the campers. And it was Camp Mystic. Is that the name, Rusty? Might get that right?
Yep. Can't
Yeah,
Mystic.
Camp Mystic. And so I'm a new father. My son was born in April, and the, becoming a parent changes in a lot of ways, a lot of subtle ways too. Like so, you just become a lot more sensitive to things like that, and that pretty much brought me to tears just seeing it all happening live, and then learning how many people were missing and how many of them were little ones, and really by Saturday, I was thinking, okay, what's there to do here? And by Sunday, I had created an Amazon list and I created a little sort of selfie video. I think I recorded it probably 20 times to get my message to sound succinct and well spoken. But my plan was Monday, I'm going to release this list. I have a network. I've been building my network on LinkedIn. So if I can get, my goal is even if 50 people donated, water, diapers, baby food, whatever was on that list, that's something that's different than nothing. And that's what I did. And my partners over at Rupt, Jason and Mike, immediately, jumped on the phone with me and said, "Hey, how can we help?" And obviously they're very well known in this space. And it was, I said to them, what you guys can do is amplify this message because Rupt is a much bigger player than Desplants is. And they have much more experience and many more years in this space. So I knew their voice was going to be able to reach a lot more people, and they were able to quickly get that message amplified. And then Rusty jumped on board when he saw what was going on and said, "Hey," because the plan was, and I mentioned it in my initial message, was Monday we started the list, and then Friday was the planned day to drive out to the community and deliver those donated goods to a collection point. And Russ says, "Hey, sign me up. Let's get out there." And so, really, from Monday morning until Friday, we actually were able to drive over $25,000 worth of goods from that one Amazon list, which was just absolutely incredible. Blew me away, the amount of people that stepped up and reached out. But one of my initial thought, which builds into what we're building with Team OnDemand, was, hey, Amazon's got this great supply chain. We can get things on Prime overnight. So it's not like we got to wait 2 weeks for it to happen. And I've got this warehouse that I share with Rupt. So we've got a place where we can collect it without being super cumbersome or, getting in the way of my neighbors. So I've got these two assets that I can use. Let's see what we can do with it. And obviously the message got amplified and it went crazy in a good way. And by Friday, we had a full large U-Haul truck full of goods that Rusty, myself, and a few other players went out and dropped off. And that's how it happened.
Rusty,
Yeah.
talk about how you saw how that was going to fit together.
Well, really, we were trying to, the nice thing is, Lawrence was already moving, right? He had already made the decision. I'm doing this,
No.
and he was called. We were looking at it as well, saying, okay, how do we get involved? What do we do? Problem is, a little bit larger organization, we move a little bit slower with trying to get things and how we're going to do it. And so when I saw this, I'm like, I've been to this facility. I know Lawrence. I know the guys at Rupt. I'm like, let's just jump in here and we'll just support however we can. And they had pretty much did all the hard work. I'm lazy, so I was like, hey, I'm just gonna hop on his coattails and just go for a ride in the hill country. And then he put me to work, unloading boxes and waters and all that. But no, in serious though, it was one of those things that we were going to be moving down parallel paths, and sometimes it's a lot easier just to come together and say, hey, how do we help support somebody that's already one or two steps ahead so that you can do more together than you can individually. And I think
Yeah.
that was really part of the spirit of what really ended up becoming Team On Demand. As we were coming back, we were just like kind of looked at each other after a really long day, and we were still pumped. We were just like, all right, there is something way more here we can do. And I've been in the industry I was on the promotional side for 20 years and been in the print side. And you start looking at the network and how it kind of things came together just organically with just this one little opportunity. And we start saying, well, shit, there's a whole bunch of facilities in every single market around the country. And I started thinking about the Asheville, the floods in North Carolina, and they were how do you leverage that network that we've got as an industry? Not just the facilities and locations, but the people, the boots on the ground, the product. We could really make an impact. And people are sitting on samples and they want to do good. They don't know where. And that was where we really started looking at the opportunity. One of the challenges we found was that when we were in Kerr County, it was a mess because all of a sudden this tiny little town. Lawrence, do you remember the town that we actually
We're in
ended up
Center
going?
Point. Center
It
Point,
was
and
Center
we're
Point,
about,
Texas.
yeah, one town down from Kerrville, and there's like two roads. One's got a school on it, the other's got some businesses and restaurants on it, and a church. It is
Completely unprepared for what it needed to be at that moment, right?
You
correct.
have no idea. And that's what we saw when we got there. You had all these people converging on this tiny little town to help out. They were just compelled. But then their school, and there's a middle school, was basically turned into a makeshift collection point, and they had volunteers sorting clothes, putting waters everywhere. It was everywhere. And we're just like, man, there is something more here that we can really leverage what Lawrence started and then what we could build with the industry and the sport of both print and promo. We're like, you know, let's do something. And that's where Team On Demand kind of started picking up steam, and it's where we are today.
So we're all responsible for a spot in the supply chain that eventually arrives at the exchange of a good between two parties. All three of us, for the most part, are largely removed from that moment when the exchange occurs. And you guys, in this moment, got to not only watch the power of our medium, you got to watch the exchange. So, talk a little bit about like the revelation around the effectiveness of the things we actually can provide people in that moment.
Well, I think the eye opener for me, and the real idea behind it all for me, was we're actually delivering these goods to the source, or to the area that's needed, right? And I think too many times, a company or a fast food chain will be like, all right, all proceeds are going to the efforts, right? And it's a nice gesture and it's good and that's very important, it's very needed. But I think sometimes people want that extra connection, right? They want to see where that exchange point is. They want to see the feedback. Oh, I personally donated to this specific cause, and now I'm watching my efforts, my donation actually go to the place where it's going to be distributed to those in need. So I think the biggest thing is it allows for a really rich story to be told
Mhm.
around each mission or each situation. And in this particular case, we brought a couple cameras with, and we chatted, and it was really, I think people really appreciated the ability to see that exchange point you're talking about and say, oh wow, this did happen. What I bought on the Amazon list is now in the hands of people who can get it immediately to those in need. And it's not just a little gray hole that you donate some money to. And there's nothing, again, that's needed. But
Sure.
I just think the seeing it really happen in front of you, or somebody seeing the update on LinkedIn or wherever we post that story, it just makes it that much more. I feel self reward for helping that cause, and like really really just happy that somebody is getting that need or that product that they need to help with their recovery, you know, whatever they're going through in that moment. So I don't know. I don't know if that worded that well enough, but that's what I got out of that experience.
I think you nailed it, because that's one of the things where most people, they want to be involved. They don't know how to get involved, where to go, where do I send stuff? How do I, if I want to put, go volunteer in person, where do I go? What's that call? Who do I call? Where's the sign up sheet? Whatever. If I want to donate stuff, who do I send it to? How do I know it's going to get there? Money's this big situation. Taylor's like, hey, here's a couple $1,000, donate. And I'm sitting there going, where do I do? I'm now responsible for choosing where to send this money, not knowing how much of that's actually going to go to the affected victims of this disaster. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, we could do so much more when we deliver the actual products that we know that they've put out for it, because they mentioned they needed socks at a camp for disabled kids. And we dropped off, I forget the supplier.
2,000 from Sock Club.
Sock, yeah. Basically sent 2,000 pairs of socks that we were able to literally drop off at this camp that they were scrambling around trying to save camp for these disabled kids. And the impact was massive. And to be able to document that and then also share that, and then make sure that the supplier that donated it saw their product being delivered is really impactful, versus it just goes off and then you just hope and pray that it gets delivered at least to the right people. And that, to me, I think what Lawrence was saying is exactly right. We've got the ability to be able to do that, and with social and video and everything else, we can tell a story end to end. It's not just, hey, we want to be that point where anybody in the industry can contact to figure out how can they get involved. We're going to make it easy for them to donate with product. We don't want to be a collection point of money. The only thing that we're going to collect money from is to basically cover our operating costs, which are going to be very minimal. And we're going to post and be 100% transparent with where every single dollar is spent and used and billed, so everybody understands exactly what is happening. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that whatever somebody donates, 100% of it gets to the folks that need it most.
So I think it was in the U-Haul truck where we were discussing, right? So, you know, we went out there and I think we talked a little bit about it on the way out. But, you know, hey, you know, our industry obviously came together here. We've got all these things like collection, like warehouses that we could, you know, utilize. We've got plenty of suppliers who have goods that are just sitting, whether they're not selling, misprinted, or they have a donation budget that they need to fulfill, whatever, that there's a willingness to give, right? But it was really on the trip out back from Center Point back to Austin. It's 2 hours out, 2 hours back, where Rusty and I were kind of
in a big ass U-Haul that does not go very fast.
Does
and
not
we
go very fast.
Lots of stops for gas.
Really bad. We were not smelling our best after that day.
But there was just this when you go doing something like that and you really see what it's like in these disaster zones, you walk away with a very introspective mindset. And you know, for us, it sort of manifested in, okay, great idea we're talking about this morning. How the hell do we do that, right? Like, what does that look like? What can we do? What is at our fingertips? And we just sort of were just spitballing, like, well, shit, we've got this whole industry that the whole backbone of promo and print on demand is based upon fast and efficient logistics and supply chain movement, right? So clearly, we've got
that's different. Sorry.
Well, clearly there's a backbone of logistics that we can utilize here, that we can leverage. We just got to find out what's A to B, and then how do we get from that collection point, kind of figure out the last mile logistics, as they call it, and get it into the hands of those who need the products. And so that was, I think, the moment really, like, the seed was planted on the ride out. But after that experience that we both shared in the cleanup efforts and search and recovery efforts that we participate in, it was that ride back where it was like, there's something here. What is it? Let's start spitballing, brainstorming, and figuring this out.
Yeah, it was a pretty obvious where that thread was going that we started pulling, because we both kind of looked at each other like, yeah, that's it. We've got it. Because we're not trying to be that very first people on the ground. We're not trying to solve or repair or anything like that. What we want to do is ease the pain and burden of making it easy for people to get involved, know where to go, and then also where to donate, and then get the product as quickly as possible using the supply chain to do it. And that's really the focus is to keep it simple, but make it easy for anybody, anywhere to give back.
Yeah, so let's paint that picture from disaster to mobilization. Where are we? What does that look like for you
Yeah.
guys today?
So we are a 501(c), so we've done all the paperwork to get that done. So we can make it very, again, transparent. We've got our board in place. CJ Schmidt from HIT's is a board member as well. He's supporting it. In fact, HIT donated
Oh, they
was
donated
a
a truck. Sorry
55
for not
foot
calling that
truck.
out. Yeah,
It was like
they
$60,000 worth of stuff. It was really amazing what they did as a follow-up effort to the very first wave of donations. So we wanted to get CJ involved in the organization, and so he's a board member. And then really what we're looking at is we're just building a playbook, and that playbook is going to continue to evolve as we have more and more of these opportunities to learn from these unfortunate disasters. But we know they're going to happen, right? It's just we're now entering hurricane season, so we're kind of galvanizing to get ready to be able to support that. We're going to have a platform a website that people can make donations to support us financially from just operation standpoint. They'll be able to see what those costs look like and how they can support that. But then also they can sign up as a supplier or our partner to be a facility, a potential facility that can be a staging area. So if a disaster hits in their region or area, we have a short list of people that we can call and say, hey, we see that there is a hurricane coming down on the East Coast. We see that you're in X location that's within 100 miles of this. Please confirm if this is something you would be able to support should we need your facility. Have that in place, so that would be a staging area so we can get the communication out as soon as we know exactly what is needed from the folks that are in the areas where it's been impacted. Get product there so that we can then stage that, and then also work with anybody who wants, any companies that want to put employees and or customers who want to come out and do boots on the ground type of volunteer work, be able to at least find where they can go and how they can sign up to actually have volunteer days as well. But again, we'll probably be the very first few of these. Lawrence and I are going to be hopping in the car and being responsible for being there to see the products and make sure it's get done and keep refining this playbook until we know that it's 100% ready to go and we can just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
And what I'd tell you, what we see from the promo cares perspective, kind of from our vantage point, is there's lots of these what we'll call make the world a better place efforts by participants in our marketplace, which is really nice. And what we love about promo cares is it's really serving as the community by which, whether they find their way to us through Team OnDemand or Ben Grossman and Swag Cycle, who we talked to not too long ago, and some of the other efforts that we're trying to highlight as a part of BRANDfill BreakUp, ultimately what we're hoping is that we find these pockets and we can connect them in ways that the information can get around to the places that would find people who would be interested in knowing, getting that more quickly than if we weren't able to present that to them. So, like, how did this thing change each of you guys? How are you changed as a result of what went down?
Lawrence, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, look, I come from a neck of the woods where, it's blizzards are kind of the worst thing that hit up in the Northeast, and it's pretty insulated from major disasters. So a lot of the stuff was pretty removed from me. Going out and seeing the impact of a disaster like a flood, it really gave me a new respect for what these people, what these communities go through when these things happen. And it's no longer just a news piece for me. It's oh wow, that community is really hurting right now. Like how can I find ways to, help out, right? And look, we can't be at every single disaster that ever is going to happen. Like we'd love to get there, but at the moment we're still early. But even if I can, set up a way or find a way to utilize what we're doing and leverage it to get some help to some communities for some smaller disasters, like that's what I'm drawn to do, right? And I think for me, it's just given me a much greater understanding overall for what these communities go through when these do happen. And yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I took away from it. And also as a human being, as a father, as a business leader, I can't sit back and just let these things happen anymore and just continue on with my day. I need to get back. I want to make this world a better place in some way that I can. And this has been my calling.
That was beautiful, Lawrence.
Came up with it on the spot.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's true. I feel very similar. In a situation like this, you kind of learn that, your values, they're not tested necessarily in the boardroom, but they're really kind of tested in times of crisis. And I was sitting there watching it. It hits at home, right? You're sitting at home and you're seeing these tragedy happen. And we know a lot of people whose kids go to, my first thought went to a lot of the families that we know whose kids go to these camps, because Kerrville is where a majority of the campers, where the kids in our area go. And these are generational camps. So a lot of families that are there. And what I first thought was, God, please don't let there be someone. I mean, you didn't want anybody to be affected, but then you start thinking, okay, which families could be affected? And there was one that lost a child. And it breaks your heart as a parent, as a Christian, as a human, right? And you sit there and go, how do we get back? And so that's why when I say you're not tested, not necessarily in a boardroom, but in crisis, these are crises. And you've got to look around and see what are the resources that I have available, and how do I make use of those resources? Because if I'm not if I'm not leveraging what God and everybody else is giving us, then you're missing out. And
Yep.
that's the power of not only having an industry that has got such great reach and scale and people and compassion. We got the ability to impact change.
And if there is any thread that binds the Promo Cares community, it is we respond when we see something that strikes us as humans in ways that makes us use the creativity that we all have around the supply chain we've been given to do yet this other amazing thing with the things that we all have at our disposal. And for that, the grace of God, whatever you want to call it, like we are blessed with this abundance of opportunity and a willingness to know how to deploy it in seemingly unconventional ways. So I'm super grateful to you guys for doing that. We're going to do everything we possibly can to continue to promote the message of what's going for Team OnDemand. Obviously, when there's instances where we perceive there to be an opportunity to talk to our community to see if there's a response needed, we're going to work that for you as best as we possibly can. And obviously, we'd love nothing better than for you in those instances where you think there may be opportunities for us to find members of our community that can help you guys along the way. Like, see this as the beginning of our way to be able to continue to do that.